How does Alteia's platform integrate diverse data sources like claims, charts, and clinical data while maintaining security, consent, and interoperability?
Great question. So Acuvia has data ingestion engine.
Okay.
And we leverage AI heavily within that ingestion engine. So we all know that some of the data within healthcare has standards.
Welcome to Life Science Insights podcast. I'm your host, Sendil Karnanidhi. In today's episode, we'll be diving into predictive intelligence and the future of healthcare and exploring how these innovations are reshaping care delivery, driving transformation, and setting the stage for the next era of healthcare. Our guest for today is Nanda, founder and CEO of Altheia Incorporation. She's a respected leader across multiple innovation and business communities, a proud member of WBL, the C-Suite Network, and Hero Club. She brings a powerful blend of strategic leadership, innovation mindset, and the real-world impact. And we are thrilled to have her on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Jolly.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Okay. Let's start by getting to know a bit about your background.
Sure. So a little bit about myself. I have a background in healthcare manufacturing, primarily in the technology area, but then over time grew into more of the operations and the business side of things. Originally from India, came to the US when I was 18, grew up around the world and have lived across all continents except for Australia and, Antarctica.
Yeah, that's an inspiring journey, and there is so much to learn from your experience. So you led both Altheia Incorporation and Vikriti Management Consulting. What inspired your transition from consulting to founding a predictive health platform?
So I'll talk about, my journey, which actually started, the healthcare journey started my roles that I led within United Health Group. And I spent over a decade there and understood really the healthcare system, how it works, what things don't work. And I saw tremendous amounts of data, claims, clinical notes, behavioral signals, but a lot of it just lacked context. And what I mean about that is it was but data of people, but it wasn't from them. It was about them, but not from them.
Okay.
Right? And as a patient, and this was kind of when my health journey started as well, as a patient, I experienced firsthand the disconnect that it has if you don't have the context of that data. And that was a turning point for me. And I realized that the contextual data was the key. And predictive analytics and AI can only be transformative if it is grounded in the truth, that it is complete, connected, and that it's consent-driven, because that's what allows the data to flow. And from there was where the vision of Altheia came. And the platform Acuvia is what brings that to life.
Oh, so inspiration. What problem in healthcare were you most passionate about solving when you created Altheia?
So as I mentioned, healthcare data is flooded with information, right? But that information truly right now lacks meaning because of that lack of context. Our data sits in silos, very fragmented, because our care is very fragmented. It's very episodical, right? So you go see the cardiologist and they have data on you. You go see a pulmonologist, and unless they're all in the same system, the data doesn't flow. And sometimes, even if you're within the same system, data doesn't flow. The other problem is it doesn't hold data for the whole person. So there's a lot of context we as individuals have about our health, not only our family history, and a lot can be deciphered and found from your family history. You don't have to do a DNA test.
Okay.
But if a consumer or a patient's not able to manage, the depth and breadth of their family history,
Okay.
you miss all of those nuances.
Yes.
Plus, how many of us can say that we're fully compliant and all of the data that is in the EMR is actually accurate? So you may be prescribed something, but you may have stopped taking it.
Yes.
And that's important. And when you take that alongside maybe supplements, that's even more important.
Okay.
And these are the little nuances that people miss. Also, preferences of, hey, I hate to run, or I hate to lift weights, or I don't like kale. These are all relevant because if someone is trying to give you a diet plan or give you ideas of how to take care of certain things, if they don't know who you are, what your preferences are, you're not going to follow the regimen that they give you. And that's what we're trying to solve. It's about the whole person and how do we improve also the individual's health literacy by exposing them to their own data and having them interact with their own data. And there's a JAMA article from, I think, 2022 that says when a patient co-manages their health records, it actually improves their own understanding by 30%.
That's true.
And that's really our mission.
Okay, that's a lot to learn.
Yeah, there's a lot packed in there.
Yes. Could you describe its mission and what makes it distinct in the health tech space?
So Altheia's mission is to restore a truth in healthcare data itself so that every decision that's made with you and for you, right, has that complete and contextual intelligence. And so our platform, Acuvia, unifies data from multiple sources, but it also allows the member or the patient to bring in all of the missing context.
Okay.
Right. And then what we have is that we have a whole truth about that individual. And so we know that AI's power depends on data being clean and being true.
That's true.
Right. And if you run AI on incomplete data, or, you basically will run into biases, right?
Right.
So our mission is allowing there to be complete data sets, and over time, allowing that data to flow through consumer consent. And hopefully that then feeds into the appropriate engines that takes away the biases that are, in a lot of the analytics in those providers that already have very enhanced analytics, but they're missing data.
Missing data. Okay.
So what we want is the consumer to create their complete data with context and store that in Altheia or in Acuvia. And then we allow them to share it with anyone that they want via the partnerships that we'll develop in our marketplace.
Okay, interesting. Why did you focus Altheia on small to mid-size employer, and how their challenges different from large-scale organizations?
So first of all, I'll say, we are a startup.
Okay.
So every startup starts small and focuses on small because that is what is manageable.
That's true.
But from a mission perspective, we made a conscious decision to focus on small and mid-size because, risk-bearing entities or value-based care providers, because we think that large organizations already have deep resources, right?
Okay.
While the smaller entities, they face the same cost pressures, but they don't have the appropriate tools to address the same issue that they face.
True.
And so that's why we are focused there right now.
That's good. That's good to know. How does Altheia's platform integrate diverse data sources like claims, charts, and clinical data while maintaining security consent, and interoperability?
Great question. So Acuvia has data ingestion engine.
Okay.
And we leverage AI heavily within that ingestion engine. So we all know that some of the data within healthcare has standards. Some of them obviously don't have standards.
Okay.
And so plus we have structured and unstructured data. So I'll go also to say that even though there are standards in healthcare, we all know that there are a lot of variances within those standards that are allowed. And that is why we're in the position that we are today, where even though you can transfer data, when data goes in within a different EMR or within the same type of EMR, they go in and get stored as attachments versus actually structured data that can be utilized in analytics. And that's what we're solving for. And with the new AI tools, we have the ability to read things like, any kind of PDFs, any kind of like from OCRs to images. You can scrape data, you can get the meaningful unstructured data and create it into structured data.
Okay.
And AI is allowing us to do that. And every day there are new libraries developing. So you have to have an architecture that can take advantage of that by storing whatever data that you can make structured right now with the ability that you have and still be able to add new libraries and go back and read more, right?
Okay.
And that's the key is don't try to read everything because you'll fail.
Yes.
But if you store everything and you continuously keep on reading, you will eventually read everything.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great insight.
Yeah. And then, just having the transparency, which is unique in our platform, is that it is purely consent-driven, consumer consent-driven. So the consumer has full transparency of where data is coming from. They also have full transparency of where data is going. And with that, obviously, security is key. So without consent and security, data doesn't flow, and it's core of our architecture.
What makes Alteia's chronic disease prediction approach unique compared to other analytical platforms?
Yeah, so we focus, like I said, primarily on the data accuracy and the contextual accuracy. So allowing the patient to correct data while still storing the metadata of where it came from, who changed what, allows us to then, make sure that we are confident in the accuracy of the data that's going into our models.
Okay.
And then we're also very transparent about our prediction accuracy. So we display all our model scores back to the consumer. I mean, they're able to see that. So not only do they see the prediction, they see the accuracy score, and they're able to see all of the elements that went into the prediction.
Okay.
And so by interacting with that data and being able to trend some of those data as well, they gain that health literacy that I talked about and trust.
Okay, interesting. Can you share an example where Alteia's predictive insights made a measurable difference in outcomes or cost savings?
So I'll take a step back and say that Acuvia is a platform. The benefit is the data and the completeness of data. And so even without the predictive model, it provides benefit. So I'm going to talk about an example where just the data was able to provide benefit. So there was a patient that was bouncing from health system to health system. And every time, like they actually went from one system to another health system within a span of weeks. And they were basically asked to take, the same CT scans.
Mm.
But because this patient knew that they had taken the CT scans already, were able to say, no, I have the data from the CT scans, and let me just share it with you. So by doing that, the patient was able to avoid the duplicate testing,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And they were able to, that saved them cost as well, because as patients, you pay copays or, some sort of deductible. And there was, they also eliminated the wait
Mm.
that would have happened if they needed to go back and, source the CT scan from one system and try to get it sent to the other. They were able to do that for themselves. Not only that, they were able to accelerate the appropriate testing faster, because then the targeted MRI that was ordered happened much faster, and they were able to avoid the delayed care and get the care that they needed faster, right? Which then led to a better outcome than if they would have had to wait, right? And had the disease progress even further.
Okay.
And so here's an example where the outcome was not only a cost savings, but
Awesome.
also, it
Impactful.
avoided the delayed care. So even from a health outcome perspective, it was a better outcome.
Right. It's a great example.
Yeah. Because analytics, I would say, is a tool
Right.
on our platform
Mm.
that we have the analytics, we pass it as a tool for the consumer to share with their care providers, right? And they can use that as a tool to identify treatment plans, but it's not replacing the context
Mm.
and the diagnosis of what the physician is going to come up with.
Mm.
It is just helping guide,
Right.
what they should do, in what urgency they should do.
How does Altheia ensure transparency and explainability in its AI-driven predictions, especially in decisions that impact patient care?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we're very transparent. So with the way that we provide the transparency is that every prediction comes with the data elements that influenced that prediction. So you're able to see and interact with that data, which helps improve the confidence level. And it also helps check biases, because then you're able to see, oh, okay, those were all of the data elements that went into that prediction, but that data element seems off. Let me go correct that, right? So they're able to actually do that. Not only that, they're able to, the scores that we actually generate, the accuracy score is also viewable by the consumer.
Mm.
And it's also passed to the care provider. So full transparency there.
Okay.
And the way that we control bias and check bias is, we basically have the AI ML models, but then we also have rules that kind of are outside that to be able to detect the anomalies that occur,
Okay.
that trigger the appropriate intervention to, be able to check that data and then correct it and gain confidence in what the prediction is.
You're active in organizations like WBL, CSUD Network, Scrobius, and IMSS. How have these experiences shaped your leadership journey?
I would say one word that would really hit home for a lot of us would be collaboration, right? Because that is what being part of a team, being part of an organization gives you. It's the ability to collaborate, because nothing can be done in isolation. And when you are connected and you have other people that you can bounce ideas off of, gain insight from, I think that makes a whole world of difference. And being able to share your ideas and help someone else, I think that is true leadership.
Yeah. And moreover, network is very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was actually at my son's parent-teacher conference this morning, and my son said something as, "No, I'll take care of it." While the teachers were actually saying, I could assist. You could come to this and I'll help you. And he's like, "No, I've got it. I'll figure it out." And the one thing I told him was, well, that is a very narrow view of how you're looking at things,
Sure.
because you have to listen to what he has to say, because he may give you an alternative way that may actually help you. So maybe you should be open to listening.
That's true. That's true.
So yeah, I think that's what it's about.
What have been your biggest lessons in scaling a SaaS health platform from concept to market adoption?
Yeah, I would say that we learn every day, and we're still learning, and I'm still learning. I'd say using the right data is key, and using the market data to be able to pivot has been the biggest lesson that we've learned.
Okay.
And that it's also important to meet the stakeholders where they're at. And let me elaborate on that. So when we first started developing our Acuvia platform, we were just focused on, our beachhead being the self-funded employer groups. But what we noticed, what the market was telling us, that the self-funded employer groups are right now very distracted, and they have so many solutions coming at them. They are kind of focused on other cost-cutting measures within their own organizations. And what we heard was, hey, there are all these health systems that have smaller contracted practices that need help, that don't have the tools. And so we quickly went back and said, okay, well, because the solution is designed to help any risk-bearing entity, how do we pivot and just meet then those stakeholders and figure out what are their needs and quickly be able to meet them? And the learning there was, we went with this care management company that wanted to offer services to these contracted provider base, but most of their patients were Medicare patients. Well, most Medicare patients don't want hands-on technology. They want things to be done for them. So being able to quickly come back and say, okay, can we layer things on this with voice or something else that makes it easier? So the biggest lesson is, when you're solutioning, solution for the stakeholders, solution for what will give them the greatest benefit.
Value.
Don't try to change things so drastically that no one will adopt it. You want the solution to be adopted. So make the changes to your solution that will make it easy for them to adopt it.
Okay.
But still provide the value that you were going after.
Okay. Yeah, that's the greatest lesson to learn.
Yeah.
Collaboration is a key in healthcare. How do you build trust and partnerships among employers, payers, and care providers?
I think you have to spend a lot of time understanding your stakeholder, right? So I've spent 2 decades in healthcare and life sciences, and you have to approach it with, they do have unique needs. They're like even if you go from like a health system perspective, one specialty from another, they do have different needs, and some of them are overlapping, but from their point of view, they have unique needs, and you have to be able to listen and provide solutions that truly help them and not just add one additional burden on their plate.
Okay.
Because so if we look at how EMRs were rolled out, and the big burden that has occurred with providers and clinicians that they've had to enter everything now, the rollout of voice and being able to transcribe things directly into the EMR. I mean, that's great, right? Because it's actually solving a problem where it allows for the clinician to spend more time with the patient. So figuring out what will help them by talking to them, I think, is how we gain trust in that we are actually trying to solve problems that they care about versus what we think they care about.
Right. Right.
So our way of doing that is by saying that, you have to start with a trustworthy data set.
Okay. Okay.
Right. And by meeting them by saying, we work with the consented data set, right? And that is what then builds trust is, okay, consented. And we plug in and we meet them within the workflow that they currently have. We're not trying to change their workflow.
Right. That's important.
Yeah.
How do transparency and timely care guide you vision for predictive health and member engagement?
So prediction only matters, right? If it arrives in time to change the course of your health, right? So what we have is we have real-time ingestion and real-time prediction. So every time there is a new data element entered in your data set, the prediction is run. And we have the flexibility of, with the consent, the consumer, basically can choose the frequency of those consents. So what I mean by that is you can have open consent to your care providers that they can periodically get those predictions, or you can also add to that rising risk alerts. So if I get a new data element within my data set and I run a prediction in my data, and there was a delta in that, it shows that, oh, my cardio risk actually went up. In real time, it will send an alert to my care provider. And that outreach can happen, right? At that moment, and truly change the course of my health journey, because I get immediate notification and care. I get notified, the care management can get notified.
Okay.
Right? And they can reach out to me if that workflow is, fully enabled. But what we're counting on is, hey, we're giving you all the tools to be able to trigger those and react to those.
Okay.
But the consumer needs to play an important part in this by consenting and also being, an active participant of that, to then take that information, do something with it.
Do you see predictive analytics playing a role in advancing health equity or reducing disparities in care access?
I mean, that is one of our missions in Altheia, was to address health literacy, and health equity. And we're doing that by having this, tool available, and by addressing health literacy, you also empower the consumer to be an advocate for themselves. That will drive health equity. Someone once explained the difference between inclusion and equity is inclusion is that, you get invited to a dance, right? And equity means someone actually asks you to dance, right? So if you think about it that way, if everyone has access to their own data and you're getting your predictions, you are now empowered to take yourself with that data and demand care because you have the data.
Right.
And because that gives you more flexibility as well, whether you go seek alternative care with that data or traditional. And so it opens up
Right.
your choices.
And data is a new oil, right?
Yes. But also I think what the data that we collect and the core of the data is not just clinical. It does have social determinants of health. So when I talk about the context, it's about social determinants of health. It's the environmental factors. And all of those patterns of inequities are part of the data set. And then with volume and with our vision of giving people the ability to monetize on their data by making it available for research, we are addressing health inequities across the board.
Okay.
That is our vision.
That's a vision. What are the biggest barriers to AI adoption in healthcare today, and how organizations can overcome them?
Well, I would say first is fear, which is a natural human reaction when you don't have the full information. And some of the fear is quite valid because if the data isn't accurate, the predictions are not going to be correct. So if you look at it that way, yeah, there is fear in that, rightfully so. We should focus on accurate, complete data. And also, I think education that AI isn't used blindly. Sometimes AI has better accuracy than any human because it basically eliminates human error.
That's true.
But in some cases you can argue there's also, human judgment that's required. So AI is a great tool to help you narrow down your options. And then you can use human judgment to make the decision based on the experience you have. Right. So by allowing that transparency, I think that we have in our platform and many now have in their platforms, we're kind of uncovering, the black box, right?
Okay.
So people shouldn't fear it. Then it's about just getting adoption and getting used to it.
What's next for Altheia? Any innovation or partnership you are excited about?
Oh, yes. We're actually working on quite a few partnerships right now, which we have NDAs, so we can't talk about right now until we kind of are in the position to announce them. But we are trying to scale. We are raising our seed round. As I mentioned, we are a startup. We want to launch our direct-to-consumer app because right now our go-to-market strategy is B2B2C. And with the raise, it'll allow us to do a direct-to-consumer play as well, and also scale operationally and execute on our roadmap from a technology perspective. We want to enhance our models by adding additional diseases, because currently we have heart disease, kidney disease, diabetes, hypertension, and COPD. So we know that there's a lot of focus on, the autoimmune diseases right now, as well as female health. So, we want to do that through partnership because we want to focus on data and having the right data available. But then there are so many other partners out there and other vendors that, are at a more advanced stage that could benefit from our data. And so our focus is not to spread ourselves thin, but just focus on where we want to provide the most value.
So finally, what advice would you give to emerging founders and innovators who want to make a meaningful impact in healthcare through data and AI?
So I would say lead with empathy. And I don't mean empathy just for like one stakeholder. Don't just empathize with the patient. Empathize with the stakeholder as well. Other stakeholders like, the nurses, like actually understand what their workflow is like and what they are saddled with. The physician, even the health plan, right? No one in this ecosystem wants to do something that will hurt the outcome for the patient.
Okay.
Right? But there are, conflicting incentives that drive certain things to happen.
Okay.
But we should kind of look at it with an open mind and try to pull people together and ensure that everything that we do is designed to make that measurable impact for the patient.
So that's all we have for today. And thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. It was truly interesting and insightful discussion. Thank you again for your time and sharing your valuable insight with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our discussion today.